Alright, so sorry about the having to do it over two separate videos. I don't know what's going on with that, but anyways, let's have a look at page 1, section 2 of the Algebra IV booklet. Go all the way down to letter G. It's past all the beginning practice stuff. It says Tom's red bicycle travels 50 feet for every 3 pedals. How many pedal turns are needed for 5,280 feet or a mile? So this is good old-fashioned standard ratio algebra. If you recall, I gave you a T-chart last last booklet about how to set this up. So I'm not going to give you a T-chart, but we'll go over the process. And the first thing to do, if you recall, is to set up what we call a ratio equation. So that's using letters to order how the numbers need to go. Here's what it looks like. Okay, I use distance, D, and P for pedal. So distance to pedal is equal to distance to pedal. Now it doesn't matter which letters you use. You can use, feet, F for feet, and T for turns, or whatever you like. But what's important is that the order that you have on one side is the same as the order that you have on the other side. So I could even have the P first and the D second, as long as it was the same on both sides of the equal sign. So I've set up the letters, and now I plug in the numbers and figure out where to put in my variable, because this will eventually turn into a fraction, which we already know how to solve. Okay, so I'm told that I have 50 feet for every 3 pedals. That goes in the first D and P slots. So here's what that looks like. Alright, so there's the first half of the equation, and the second half comes from what we want to find out. We want to find out how many pedal turns, so X will be for P for pedals, right? You put your X in the pedal spot. And we know that the distance is 5,280 feet. So we know both those two parts, and we fill those in on the other side. Okay, so we've gone from letters to numbers, and now it's a matter of converting them into fractions. The first number goes on top, and the second number goes on the bottom for both sides. So write that out. Alright, so we convert them to fractions, now solve. And you have to ask yourself, do I need to flip the equation or not? Is X on the top or is X on the bottom? Well, X is on the bottom of the second fraction. Doesn't matter which fraction it's on, as long as it's on the bottom. And if X is on the bottom, I have to flip it to the top. But remember algebra, right? What you do to one side, you have to do the other. So you got to flip both, and a lot of people forget that. So remember to flip both, and then it should be easy peasy. See if you can get the answer. So as we continue to work through, right, I have to flip both fractions, and I got the X on top, so I times both sides by 5280, right? So I wind up getting over here 5280 times 3 divided by 50, and you work that out on your calculator, and it's like 316.8 or something like that, and it rounds to 317. And you'll find 317 in the answers on the side, and that's one of your answers to slot G, right? This winds up being 316.8, so that rounds to 317. Okay, 317. X is equal to 317. Okay, so you have basically 2 pages of work where you're sorting those out. Write out your, if you're going to be doing this on a separate sheet of paper, make sure that you write out at least the algebra that you're doing for that. I don't just want to see answers, so I won't count it. You need to show at least the algebra, the algebra work that you need to do. So something like that down here. This is probably good enough if you just show that particular step. Alright, that should be good enough for me for getting full marks for your assignment. So those first 2 pages are devoted to that. But if you look at the 3rd page, you're dealing with what we call scale diagrams. The page that looks like this. So you need to get out a ruler, because we're going to be doing some scale work. Alright, so I'll pause the video, and we'll get started there shortly. Alright everybody, you'll need a ruler to do that page, so you better try to find one. Beg, borrow, steal if you can. Alright. So in order to do that page, the first section is using your ruler to measure side lengths. And the first thing they ask you to measure is the length of the ballroom, right? The length of the ballroom, so the top part of it. So you just get out your ruler and you measure it. They, they do it in centimeters, so you got to make sure you measure it out in centimeters. And let's see what I get. What do I get? It looks like I get about 8.7 about. What do they have there as answers? Let me make sure. Yeah, 8.7, 8.8. What do we have? Anything close there? I guess the closest would be 8.4. That's kind of weird. It's so far off, but yeah, I guess it's a little bit. When when you print these things off on a printer, sometimes the scale that your printer prints it off for you is not exactly the scale that they drew it at. So it's one of the reasons why this is a little bit dodgy. But it sounds like it might be actually be 9.1. Yeah, I would use 9.1 for that one, because the measuring that I'm getting from the sheet is a little bit short of what they measure. So I'm going to measure to the next number above. So I measured 8.7, I'm going to call it 9.1, and I'll use that one as letter S. So I'll just make a little note here, measure higher. Or I should say record higher. Record. Okay, record higher than what you actually measure because of the way that the printing is done on the computer. Sometimes it changes from time to time. So I'm going to call that as 9.1. So number 1, I'll use 9.1, which will be the letter S. Then I'm going to go find slot 1 down at the bottom of the worksheet and write in the letter S. So that's just kind of measuring work. And if your numbers don't match up or whatever, that's fine, but you record the closest number in your answer section that's higher. And keep track of those numbers, because they're going to get you to use those numbers in the sheet. So for the next section, questions 6 through 13, we have to be able to translate that into what is real, like what the real value is. And that's where you use the scale. That's at the top of the very page. It says 2 centimeters is equal to 3 meters. So we wind up using that as a way to help figure out what the real value of that room is, not just what you see on the scale. And guess what? It requires you to use ratio algebra. So let's have a look and see how letter G works itself out. So for the rest of them, you're going to use this ratio equation using the letter scale to real is equal to scale to real. That's what I'm using as the letters. You can use whichever letters you like. So we know from the top that 2 centimeters is equal to 3 meters. And I can write that in at the start of my equation. Right? 2 centimeters on the scale is equal to 3 meters in real life. Okay, so let's write that out. And if you scroll back a little bit in the video, you'll recall that we measured the length of the bathroom to be, well, I measured out to be like 8.7, but we're going to use 9.1 because that's what our little question uses. So we'll use 9.1 for the scale, and then we have to set up x as our real. So we're going to have 9.1 to x. Okay, looks like that. So now we convert it to fractions and then solve. See if you can do it. Okay, so the first number goes on top, second number goes on the bottom. Right, we do it for both sides. We notice that x is on the bottom of the fraction, so now we have to flip both fractions. Okay, so we got to flip, and then this is what we get at the bottom. X divided by 9.1 over there on the right-hand side. So now it's easy, right? Times both sides by 9.1 and calculate it out. See what you get. Okay, so 9.1 times 3 divided by 2. Okay, so 9.1 times 3 divided by 2. If you do that on your calculator, it gives you 13.65, and that matches up to letter I. Okay, so in slot 6, wherever you see that at the bottom, you put in the letter I, and there you go. Alright, so remember, when you're doing this page, the measurement that you take the higher number in your answer column because of just the way the computer prints out paper and stuff like that. Okay, so that really takes us to the end of our work booklet, and yeah, stay tuned for more work coming in the future. Okay, take care, guys.